Shalom from Jerusalem. My name is Albert Veksler. I'm the director of Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast, and we're here in our offices in Jerusalem with answers for allies. Together with me is Raphael Israeli. Now, you have been a professor in Hebrew University for many, many years, teaching Islamic, Chinese, Middle Eastern history at Hebrew. You graduate and Hebrew University in history and Arabic literature. You have a PhD in Chinese and Islamic history from University of California. I mean, splendid academic career.
My doctorate is signed by Ronald Reagan.
Oh, wow.
Who was the governor of California.
Amazing. And 100 books in your 88 years. It's an accomplishment that is amazing. Rafi, really happy to have you here. And we wanted to talk about the Gaza disengagement. I mean, I remember you were very vocal against the disengagement plan. You wrote to Ariel Sharon, you warned. What happened with this?
Look, at that time, 2005, when Sharon was the Prime Minister of Israel, he was suspected and even indicted for some corruption on his part. But he knew that by being or by seeming to be very lenient or moderate on the question of territories, whom the left in Israel, the liberals in Israel, and the world press and Europe wanted Israel to evacuate because the territories are Palestinians and therefore and so on. And he apparently, we don't have proof, apparently in order to win the support of all these liberals that I said, although he was Mr. Security, he was renowned for that, Mr. Security and Mr. Israeli Settlement. He decided, and it was a one-man decision, although he lost his Likud party for that, to leave the Gaza Strip. Now, if he left it in return for something, like you do in any diplomatic negotiation, you can feel, okay, it's a matter of wrong reasoning on his part. He thought this and he obtained this, that happened. But the problem is he wanted to leave one-sidedly without talking to anybody, that he did not even try to get anything for that. And he ordered the Israeli troops. He lost his party. He had to create another party of his followers in order to pass his decision by new Knesset. And therefore, he changed the party, he changed his government, and as one-man decision, he enforced that one-sided evacuation by Israel of the entire Gaza Strip and on the northern part of Samaria. You know, some 4 or 5 settlements were also evacuated. He got immediate satisfaction for his act because he became the hero of peace of all Europe and America and the press and the liberals in Israel. All of them forgot his incrimination or indictment of his thing, and that's apparently, again, nobody has a proof, apparently what he had intended, and he got it. And therefore, until his death, he was the hero of peace. Exactly the reverse image of what he had to have before. And what he promised is the following. He said, after we withdraw, and we withdrew 20 flourishing Israeli villages, very, very abundant and advanced agriculture, which employed thousands of local Gazans who did not have any jobs otherwise, and everything was evacuated on Gaza. Now, he promised us that the Gazans would be conducive to reconcile with Israel because we left the territory. They always claimed that we occupied. Secondly, Israel will not need, because of that situation, we will not need to hold major military forces in order to fight, because it will be a border of peace, right? And he said, thirdly, we will gain the support of the world, because everybody was happy that Israel evacuates territories and so on. And all the settlements in Israel will, from now on, have nothing to fear about missiles, attacks, or anything. But all the four promises, which seemed at the time very solid, and even they gained the majority in the Knesset, otherwise they would not have passed, all of those promises simply collapsed within 1 year. Even the promise of the European countries in America who supported this evacuation and to support Israel, now, after the year, they say, well, now you have to pursue the same step on the West Bank too. So instead of his withdrawal becoming a lauded or a praised step for peace, it became a big baton in the hands of the Europeans to beat him. Why don't we do that? Fortunately for him, he died. And therefore, he did not live to face those terrible consequences. Came a new government, and in Gaza, Hamas
took
over in 2007. After Gaza returned officially in 2006 to the authority, to the Palestinian Authority of Arafat, and they sent their branches of government, Arafat, in order to co-opt the Gaza. But the Hamas people knew that this was their only opportunity, and unlike what the Daesh and Al-Qaeda were doing elsewhere in the world, by hitting and withdrawing, because they did not have a turf, a land base for themselves. They were just movements, and like other terrorist movements, like the Boko Haram in Africa. They simply were organizations, not land-based, and therefore they could not even be complained against, because they are not a state. The world is organized in states.
Exactly.
And so on. And therefore Hamas knew that lesson. They said that unless they build and grow on a turf, on a territory which they control, and indeed they took over Gaza, the PLO officials who were formerly in command of the country were thrown from the rooftops of Gaza, were thrown to their death, and that already gave you a hint of what will happen, because if they treat this way their people, just think or imagine what would they do to their rivals.
Absolutely. And they never really cared for the territories more than just to
A base.
use them as a terror base, because they have a religious charter, they have a religious purpose. And Rafi, I remember you had a PhD candidate, Boris Havel. You remember him? He got his PhD under you. He was writing about something that always intrigued me. He said, Allah and the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is not the same one. And this is something that is so confusing for the people. They think it's the same God.
Exactly now, these days, you took me to this interview from the middle of that. I'm writing a book analyzing the charter of the Hamas, and which I intercepted in 1988 when it was just written and released in Arabic. One of my students, Arab students, brought me the text in Arabic. I taught it in a course in Arabic at the university, and asked every one of the students to take one chapter. There are 37 items, and everyone came to the class with an analysis of each chapter. It's harrowing. You want to pull your hair when you hear that. And now I publish it as a book. And when you see those things that I published, I tell you, 1988, that's when the Hamas was convened. And I put it in the internet, it's still there. And that's what I'm taking now. Already then, I said, so every people who responded to it, it was what, 25 years ago, tell me, are you crazy, Rafi, to believe in that nonsense? Well, that's what they told me.
And this is exactly what they did.
Yeah. That is exactly what they did, what they promised to do, and they are doing it.
October 7th.
And they are doing it. So again, this is one of the warnings. You asked about the warnings before that were given to Israel. In Europe, they laughed about it. This cannot happen because it makes the Nazis, Mein Kampf, as a joke. It's horrible. And they did it on October 7th, they did exactly to the letter. And they promised to do more. Because if you saw one of the heads of the Hamas on interview said there will be another October 7 and another until we exterminate Israel and the Jewish people. And people don't want to believe that. This is the problem. And I hope that the book, it's in English, unfortunately for Israelis, like most of my books, but it will go to Europe. It will be out within 3 months, the book.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations on the book. But again, I wish it
This
was...
is, by the way, the 100th book.
Number 100. Yeah. Wonderful. But at the same time, I really wish that the circumstances would be different. But you have been warning the world. You have been telling for 30 years to watch out, because they will come to implement their goals, and people have not been listening to you. People have been... tell me this story with Australia. You were really invited. You were having a sabbatical year.
Yeah. Well, 10 years ago, I was in Australia on a sabbatical. And while being there, I was interviewed by a correspondent of local Jewish paper. And he asked me, what do I think about the Muslims in Australia? They were then a tiny minority of 2 or 3% and so on. So I said, for the time being, I don't think that Australia stands any danger because it's too small. And when a small minority is aware of its weakness, so it tries to be included inside society. They don't want to show any difference from the mainstream in order not to be too prominent and to create friction with the majority. And that's what you have today. But I say in places where it comes to 10% of the population, in Israel we are 20% of the population, things are much more serious. Because by then, and it is happening also in Europe, I said, already in France, where it is about 5 or so, no, it's 10% in France also, then they reach the critical mass which allows the community to start voicing their real thoughts. They receive radical imams who educate them to radical Islam, and therefore they start voicing openly their real
goals.
Not only hopes, but their real plans.
Exactly.
Because they are planning to do it. And I was asked, because now that idiot, the journalist who interviewed me, gave simply provocative title that I did not say. It's an Israeli professor said that Muslims are dangerous to civilization or something. I didn't say that. I said when you reach 10% critical mass, then it may become. Australia was much below that. And then I had a national crisis. All the newspapers of Australia attacked me and they asked for interviews, and I had to, and the people who invited me to lecture in Australia cancelled my tour because, and they appeared on television embracing Muslims to show the alliance of minorities, like many Jews in the diaspora do today, because they are frightened for their life. But another half of the Jews who supported my call to awake or to wake up, re-invited me and sent me for a tour of lectures all over Australia and so on and so forth. So that was compensated. And those were attended by masses of people, many non-Jews, who came because they heard there is a lecture on that. So it became a real issue on the thing. Anyway, when I went back to 10 years later, then you started to have in Australia a lot of accidents or works of terrorism, of sabotage at cafes, at other places, by Muslims who were let in Australia in the meantime, because Islam was no danger. Of course, they wanted harmony and brotherhood between people, you know, all those slogans. And it started to blow up, to explode in their face. And friends of mine who were supported me 10 years ago when all this happened started to call me and ask me, how did you know this thing will happen? I didn't know. I analyzed the situation because I had some experience with other places. Now you better wake up. So this was, in short, the whole story. And I also wrote, one of the books is about Muslim minorities in democratic states. And Australia and Canada are two examples of that. And I showed this parallel development, how Muslim minorities who are nice, who want to immigrate, who want better life, who suddenly find democracy, they find also the opportunity after they become a critical mass to show what they are really all about, to start to support and so on. I don't say all of them, because some of them adapt to the West and they want a nicer life, they prefer democracy and so on. But they don't dare to criticize their countries of origin, because many who do are murdered by their own people on the spot as traitors. How dare they reveal to the rest of the infidels what are the real programs of the Muslims? And that phenomenon repeats itself all the time, even now.
Now, you are also an expert about Israeli Arabs, and you have written a lot about these lines as well.
Well, look, first of all, I want to disavow this title of expert. I'm not expert in anything, because in the fields of humanities and social sciences, there are no experts. Because what we are is scholars. Scholars know, but only know. Experts know what to do about it. This is a huge difference. And now everybody appearing on television, I am an expert in this, and this is nonsense. And it's just distracting and cheating in some ways the others who don't know. A gynecologist is expert because he knows medicine and he knows how to help a sick woman. Yeah, and a diesel engineer knows about engineering and you know how to fix an engine which went wrong. But I don't know what to do. I only know the things that happen in the world, and I express a mind which is not a mind of expert. I am no expert. I tell you what I mean. So I want to put these things to rest. I wrote some 8 or 9 or something, I don't know anymore, half of them in Hebrew for the Israeli public, and the other 5 or 6 in English. One of them just recently, that very significantly, I called rushing to self, how do you call it? Like a suicide.
Self-destruction?
I want another word, what I remember. Anyway, so I warned the Israeli public that the society is rushing to kill itself, because what grows among us is this and this and this, who can do this and this. That's what was done. And many Israeli Arabs volunteered to go to Daesh when there was Daesh. Today they volunteer for Hamas. Israelis who were spoiled, Israeli Arabs, in universities by giving a university position, they publish in the name of academic freedom sympathy with Hamas who did that. And the university is in crisis because many people say, hey, are we in a Syrian university or in an Israeli university? It's a problem. And unfortunately, Israeli society was eroded by being the Arabs are now, it's a fact. They don't do anything. But if you remember in the 2000 events, when we had a problem with the Gazans, the Arabs of Israel also declared rebellion. And they complained that 13 of them were assassinated by Israeli police. So I said, if you were in Saudi Arabia, 200 thousand would have been killed, not 13. And in Assad in Syria killed 20,000 of the Muslim brothers when they rebelled against him. So what kind of thing? Arab villages in Israel, they block main highway that goes to the Galilee. And they laid siege around small kibbutzim in their neighborhood as if they were enemy territory.
Well, it was quite recent in 2021 that they blocked the entrance to
I
Jerusalem.
mentioned that in May 21, there was a rebellion in many mixed cities where Jewish restaurants, hotels, even synagogues were burned down by Israeli Arabs. And when those Israeli Arabs were interviewed by Israeli media later, they said, it's not enough that we are Israelis in democracy and we have a state. We need to become again the sovereign in this country. So, that is very clear. They don't want a Jewish sovereignty. It cannot exist. Because Jews have always been under the boot of the Muslim rulers. And they cannot accept the reversal of the situation. And this is clear. And I have written that in 50 books. And who listens? And I hope that now, after what happened, everything that was warned, including in my books about the Israeli Arabs, have happened. So Israeli Arabs and the Arabs, the Palestinians, have during a certain period of time all one, because there was free communication between them. Many Arabs have gone to the Islamic colleges in Hebron, in Nablus, to study there, and then they come back to their villages in Israel. Of course, they don't bring sweets and Bible books with them. You know what they come back from. In my own clinic of Kupat Cholim in Jerusalem, where I go, the girl who works in the pharmacy in the Kupat Cholim is an Arab from Hebron, and I speak to her Arabic. And they say, where did you learn? She learned in the Hebron College. So I said, what, they teach their pharmacology? She said, yes, and so on. And she is very nice, and she behaves very, but I'm sure that she won't regret if Hebron ruled over Jerusalem and not the other way around.
Well, these are really very difficult things you're sharing. Rafi, thank you so much for sharing these things. These are not easy things. I wish you were an expert in helping us to understand what's the way out. But I know one thing, that our friends who are watching us on daily basis are praying for the peace of Jerusalem. When we hear those things, you can really understand that prayer only can bring the solution where the humans cannot find a way out. So the Bible is clear. Those who bless the seed of Abraham will be blessed. Those who pray for the peace of Jerusalem will prosper. So thank you for standing with Israel. Thank you for praying for us. We are in a long-term war, and don't give up. Stand with Israel and pray with us. Shalom from Jerusalem.